Thank you, guys. It's really good to be here. I want to thank Jake and Amy for inviting me to come and speak today. I'm so excited about the work that Winston-Salem has been doing on bicycling paths, and I just really foresee some great things in the future here. I also want to give a special appreciation to cyclists. Even though I don't ride a bike, you are with me in my heart.
I've seen you ride a bike.
Not well. A bicycle was my first taste of freedom when I was a kid. I grew up in Manteo, North Carolina, which is in a really rural area on Roanoke Island. And all of the kids in the neighborhood got bicycles before I did. And they would go by in like this big pack. And I have this distinct memory of standing on the edge of my lawn kind of yelling at them saying, "My grandmother's going to get me a bike, you'll see." And then sure enough, she bought me my first bike, and I still remember it. You know, it had a light that was generated by my pedaling, and my father taught me how to ride it. And I took that bike everywhere with my dog Corky across Roanoke Island. So I know that taste of freedom, and it's something that we really need to keep alive. And gatherings like this are part of making that happen. So thank you all for that. Before we get started, I wanted to do a little something that Matthew, where's Matthew? I was having lunch with Matthew, and kind of inspired me to do this. If you commute to work at least once a week, would you mind standing up? Okay, well, we're going to kick it back to once a month. No, stay standing, stay standing, stay standing. Okay, once a month, awesome. Okay, stay standing. Okay, if your commute is 1 mile or less, sit down. If your commute is 2 miles or less, sit down. 3 miles or less, sit down. 4 miles or less. 5 miles or less. 6 miles or less. 7 miles or less. 8 or less. 9 or less. 10 or less. Well, okay, all right, awesome. I'm going to give both of you a complimentary membership to the Dan River Basin Association and a t-shirt. So if I'm going to give you my little magic book here. If you'll just write down your name and your mailing address and the size t-shirt you would like, I'll mail it to you for both of you. You too, Matt. Yeah. Okay. So I've been working for the past 4 years or so across Rockingham County. Do you guys know where Rockingham County is located? Not very many people. Okay, a couple people. Yes, man. You've been out there. Thank you. Yes, yes. So Rockingham County is the North Star. We claim that of the state of North Carolina. And we are located right in between Caswell County and Stokes County. So if you've been to Stokes Stomp or you've been up there paddling the Dan River somewhere, you've been really close to where we are. We are a rural county. We have two cities really, Eden and Reedsville, but they're relatively smallish cities. So a lot of the work that we've been doing on recreational trails, really count as rural trails. So just real quickly, I'm not going to talk for a really long time. I always hate these slides because it makes it seem like the person's going to go on forever and ever. But we'll talk about trails, serving the public interest in Rockingham County. We always keep our eye out for trail quality and sustainability and building them as local assets. And then just sort of the magic that happened in Rockingham County. We really were very lucky. So prior to about 2011, when I started working up there, the Rockingham County had less than 10 miles of natural surface trails. And I don't think any of them were necessarily cycle friendly. I mean, I think you could have ridden on them and nobody would stop you, but they were not built really to serve the needs of cyclists. Today we have actually more than 23 miles of trail out there. And then we serve this wide range of users, hikers, joggers, and of course, these mountain bikers. So one of the things that when I got started, it was through Jesse Day back there. Jesse came in and started working with a local foundation. Everybody's worked with Jesse. Raise your hand if you work with Jesse. Everybody's worked with Jesse. So a local foundation and Jesse got together, and they understood that in order to really spark trails in our area, we're going to have a plan, because the plans are good for lots of reasons, and one of those is funding. So Piedmont Triad Regional Council came in to work with the Reedsville Area Foundation to do a countywide plan. And the Dan River Basin Association, which is where I work, was invited to participate in that as sort of the local grassroots environmental type organization. Had never done any trails before, didn't know anything about this. So we joined in and we started pulling together the community members and, and worked up with a plan and came out with a really solid, very good plan. So Piedmont Triad Regional Council and the Reedsville Area Foundation both understood that if that plan was going to do something more than collect dust on a shelf, there was going to have to be somebody on the ground to serve as a catalyst. And you know how it is when you work for a nonprofit, you grant hop to grant hop. And the grant funded position I was in was getting ready to end, and I was really keen on helping with this because I had been so energized by the process. So I was hired as sort of the on-ground catalyst for making trails happen. Okay, when I got started, we had zero funding for trails. And we were working with a community member who had zero knowledge about what it takes to do trails, especially for cyclists. So I'm out there trapping through the woods, with folks, and I'm noticing there's deer trails everywhere. And I thought, well, why can't we just scrape off those deer trails and throw up some signage and invite people to come and use them? Which it seemed reasonable, low-cost thing to do, wouldn't cost me a lot of money, we could pull it off. Well, about that time, a friend, Dale Swanson, put me in touch with Tony McGee, who is a trail design builder. Who here knows Tony? Oh, yeah, he gets around quite a bit. So Tony came into Rockingham County, and I started talking to him about scraping off these deer trails. Can you imagine what Tony's reaction was when I said, okay, why can't we just clear these off and kind of do this low budget way? And to his credit, Tony understood immediately that he had to meet us where we were and bring us along in the process of educating us about trails. So he started tracking down these deer trails with us, and then Tony, we're out in the woods and it's just woods. I'm just seeing woods out there. But Tony saw a vision about what could happen, particularly at Ferris Memorial Park outside of Mayodan. So he very slowly started to educate us that you have to build trails with intention. You can't just go out there and throw down a trail. Well, you can, and we do it, but for the highest, best possible use, if you build a trail with an intention and you build it for the user's going to have a much better experience. So we reached out to Kate B. Reynolds Charitable Trust and received our first grant to build 2 miles of mountain bike trail at Ferris Memorial Park. So Tony got out there and he started working. We started partnering with some corporate. We learned how to use all those trail tools, and then we built this really nice mountain bike trail at Ferris Memorial Park. We have since received additional funding, and we're going to get it up to 4 miles. Who has ridden Ferris Memorial Park? Yeah. And these guys back here, we have a mountain bike club at the high school, and these guys back here have come and worked with us.
I've done a race there. I think it's at park, but it's somewhere.
In Mayodan?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of go up the mountain there to get to it?
I can't remember, but it's part of, it's one of the local race coordinators.
David Harlow, maybe?
Racing in the woods here?
Racing in the woods? Yeah, then you've ridden our trail. That was our trail, yeah. What did you think of it?
Oh, it was fun. It was really fun. Really twisty, back and forth.
Yeah.
But it was a really good challenge.
Well, we're getting ready to add another mile, so come back.
Yeah.
We're really proud of that trail. I mean, we're real proud of
It
it.
was fun racing.
Yeah, oh, good. Okay, so, and then not long after that, the coal ash spill happened. The 2014 coal ash spill. Have you heard of the coal ash spill, Duke Energy coal ash spill? So in response to that, Duke Energy pledged to invest about $10 million in the areas impacted by the coal ash spill. That gave it, frankly, it gave us some funding to work with. So we tapped in on some of that funding and began to build some more trails around the county. So far, Piedmont Land Conservancy built a trail at the Knight Brown Preserve, which is very close to the Blues Creek Steam Station. Darby was not the project manager or the funder of that trail. but we've assisted in the building of that. It's a really nice trail. We built an animal shelter trail specifically to serve volunteers to go out and walk dogs, because the animal shelter really wanted those dogs to get socialized. They knew they needed to get them out, so we built a trail for them, and I ended up with a dog in that process. It's not safe. So in Stoneville, which is a really small town, that's where I live. I live in the big town of Stoneville in Rockingham County, which is the last town before you cross over into Virginia. We built a trail to connect the park to downtown Stoneville that actually is getting used by a neighborhood and maintained by a neighborhood. We built a trail for Wentworth to connect their post office to the Rockingham County admin building to inspire people to walk to the post office instead of drive. Right now we are working on the Lake Reedsville hiking and biking trail. We have received funding, thanks to PARTF, to put in about 2 miles of trail around beautiful Lake Reedsville. Have you been to Lake Reedsville? Yeah, Lake Reedsville is like the best kept secret in the state of North Carolina. It is really pretty, and it's outside of the city of Reedsville. If you have a chance to go, please come. It's a really nice lake to paddle. Mayodan Mountain Bike Trail, that's our crown jewel. The Mayodan Mountain Bike Trail funding from the Kate B. Reynolds Charitable Trust really was specifically to build a good mountain bike trail for Mayodan high school students. And we've had a mountain bike club there now. I think we're going into our 5th year with that club. And that's Kaylin. She was one of the first students to learn how to, I mean, these kids don't know how to ride bikes. Like Jesse came out and taught us how to brake one day. We built a trail for Madison Schools, which is also in Rockingham County. So we built a trail to connect 3 schools together to get them down to Big Beaver Island Creek, and then we built an outdoor classroom there. We do have some gaps in our service areas. We don't have enough equestrian trails. We'd like to do more of those, and we're not really servicing off-road vehicles, but you guys probably don't really care about that.
I do have a question. I track bicycles worldwide, especially electric bicycles, and Germany and Europe has surpassed the United States in mountain biking. And the reason is they have enjoyed and promote e-mountain biking. And the United States is slow in catching up. And they are finally, the United States now is getting involved in e-mountain biking. I don't know if your county has any interest in e-mountain biking or not, but it's going to be the future for the next 10 to 20 to 30 years.
I currently have no comment on that.
Okay. And that's typical.
Yeah.
Because mountain bikers have worked for the past 30, 40 years building up trails. And a traditional mountain biker does not like to see someone with an electric bike who has not built up these trails, use their trails, and they pass them going uphill.
Dan, do you mind if I jump in? Let me get through this, because I think we're going to have a chance. What you're raising deserves more attention than we're going to be able to give it right this minute. But okay.
I saw that sign, and
yeah, no, I get it. Okay, so one of the things that we learned is that the trails really have to be built with users in mind, like I mentioned before. A big question that we get when we go to present a project for a natural surface trail to municipalities, they always ask us about how it's going to be maintained. And they ask us in the public meetings with the local television station on us. And if we cannot adequately answer that question, they are very reluctant to approve a project. So we've developed kind of a Bible of language. So we explain to them that these trails are built with sustainability in mind. We use a top-notch trail design builder. You don't have to use Tony. There's other folks out there, but Tony has not let us down yet, and he's been building trails out there now for going on 4 years. What's characteristic about these trails when you work with someone who knows what they're doing is that they shed water quite effectively. The trail bed stays maintained. The only maintenance that we have found we have to do is when a tree falls across the trail, and there's not anything anybody can do that. You've got to go take a chainsaw and cut it in half, or to kind of keep that overhead corridor clear. So sustainability, we have learned, has got to be kind of right there. We have to keep that in mind at the same time that we're developing exactly where that trail is going to go and who the partners have to be. Another thing on the sustainability is I'm really seeing more and more that we've got to start to think about the impact of climate change on our natural outdoor recreational assets. With the past 2 hurricanes that have come through, Florence and Matthew, the Dan River at Pine Hall Bridge, which is right there at the Stokes County line, is usually around 3 feet. On both of those storms, it got up over 30 feet. I mean, the flooding was astonishing. And it absolutely took out a trail along Matrimony Creek. We didn't build it. It was built by the city of Eden, but it just absolutely devastated that trail, and they've had to go in and kind of rebuild it. So I think too, as we're running along 3 tracks on these natural surface trails, we have to think about funding, design, build, who the partners are going to be, how to, bring in community folks. Then we've got to think about how to answer those questions of sustainability to give those municipal leaders, confidence in these. And then I think we've also got to start to think about climate change resiliency and how to survive these more extreme weather events that are coming through. It's kind of ironic that the young professionals, the millennial generation, is falling in love with the planet about the same time that it's under the most stress that it's ever been in human history. And then also one of the things that particularly Jesse has helped us to think about, it's rain, is how to build on local assets and really kind of point toward this is a trail town, come and see us so that when you do come up and ride one of our trails, you're not confused about where you've been. That if you come up, you'll be able to say, I was at Ferris Memorial Park, I was in Mayodan. Star Pizza has got the best pizza south of the Mason-Dixon line. That's the place to go have pizza. So, yeah.
Hey, by the way, I just looked it up. There's a race tomorrow at Fair Park at Dual
I hope our trail's going to be okay. I always worry about our trail with these races after these rains. I really do.
Well, that's the call they have to make is be racing on or not.
I know. I know. Well, we're going to talk to David to see if he'll come out and do some remediation after that race. And then, the rake and ride, I know that this is a controversial point, so I am a little apologetic about this, but one of the things that we've discovered that rake and ride really isn't enough to bring in those races like, with David Harlow, really to bring in that economic impact. I am not opposed to rake and ride. I do think these trails need to be sustainable. We have to be really mindful of water quality, but I'm not judgmental of that at the same time because I know it's expensive to bring in these.
What does that even mean? Sorry.
Oh, that's so. From what I understand, when mountain biking first got started, cyclists were kind of going out and just kind of clearing off trail and just riding the trail without really much understanding or thought about the impact of that trail building on water quality or other users or a wildlife.
It mostly has to do with soil erosion and the style of building a trail. So rake and ride, you ride on top of the organic surface, and then like a professional built, sustainable trail is going to remove all that top organic material and then bench cut it into the side of the hill. So if you got a hill, it's going to bench cut it in flat so it sheds water better. So it's a totally different style of building trail.
Would you say like Salem Lake is a rake and ride?
Yeah, the single track?
Yeah,
that's absolutely rake and ride.
Yeah.
And we are experiencing issues from
So that's causing, When you bench cut those trails, you kind of soften that water flow. So here's the higher part, here's your trail bed. And then when we go in and do hand finishing of these trails, is we just kind of soften that, we kind of curve that so the water kind of flows over it and it's not kind of hitting that trail, hitting it hard. Okay, that's Tony right there, by the way. He's talking with Dr. Lindley Butler, who's with the Museum and Archives of Rockingham County. We just built about a quarter mile of trail for an interpretive history trail that the park owns, and then we've built. We just put in a river access. It's the most upper stream access on the Hall River. It's not open yet, but it'll be open in December. In some ways, we just got lucky. I wish that I could give you something better than that, but it was just the right people at the right time kind of came together. I really think a lot of it was showing up, and personally for me, I really believe in taking risks and allowing myself to be embarrassed and to ask those questions, because there seems to be a very high interest in these natural surface trails right now. And when someone shows up and says, let's really get this going, the right people do seem to come together. And for us, it was DARBA, it was Piedmont Triad Regional Council. I cannot say enough about Piedmont Triad Regional Council. We're so lucky to have such a great regional council in this area. Just a terrific resource. A landscape architect is really helpful, someone who understands how to build trails. And then, somebody like me who's willing to go out there and kind of promote these.
I'm sorry if it's on the side, but what land is it on? I mean, is it on like state land or county land, or how do you do right away?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, we've been building all of these trails on public property. So it's either a park or it's owned by the school. And when we first got started, I spent a lot of time on the Rockingham County GIS and just looking for that public property and then figuring out who I needed to go talk to build trail there. Okay. And then, we've pulled together some Rivers and Trails group. We've got a West Rock Rivers and Trails group of community members who come together, and we have a discussion about how to get these trails going. So this is a photograph of, right over there, that's Michael Brandt, there in the red. And Michael Brandt is the former town manager of Mayodan. It was really his vision to build the Mayodan mountain bike trail. He's no longer at the town, he's now with Thomasville. We really miss him a lot. And then there's Chris, you guys know Chris, he's a cyclist, Piedmont, no? And then these are folks from REI, and then there's Tony McGee, and that was us. That picture was taken right as we were first starting to build the Mayodan mountain bike trail. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to try to answer some questions.
One thing I was just wondering about is, when you're constructing the trails, and I don't know, this is too technical, but things like building berms for turns and things like that.
Yeah.
Are there thoughts that should be doing that, or it should be more natural, or, are there certain features that you try to avoid?
Oh, I'm really glad you asked that question. So I really like the berms because they seem to really attract the cyclists. Mountain bikers, do you guys like the berms? You'll have to let me know. Yeah.
Fast sections.
Yeah, I think the berms are really great.
But they do hold water, so
No, ours don't.
If you don't build them right, they'll
Oh, no. Ours, if you can, come tomorrow and take a look at ours. Ours just, that water just wipes right off of it.
It can be built right, and that's where like landscape architect and a professional trail builder is going to come into play. Like, I've worked with Tony on building trail, and like we're standing at the bottom of a hill, and he'll be like, yeah, we're going to go this way, and we're going to make this type of turn, and then we're going to go up to this point, and we're going to do this type of turn, and then we're going to have to cross this, we're going to use this method, and like all of this has terminology and like design behind it. It's not just willy-nilly, I'm gonna put a berm right there because I want to carry speed. It's intentional design.
That's really well said. And even like working with Tony, one thing that he'll try to do when we do a stream crossing is he likes to avoid any kind of bridges or hardened structure crossings, because he says that the research has shown that the macroinvertebrates, if they see the shadow from the bridge, they'll tend not to use that stream to move up and down that stream. So he'll use rocks and that kind of thing. Native materials that are found there, it costs less and it's more eco-friendly for the aquatic habitat as well.
So then you have a water crossing?
You have a water crossing, but you've got...
To get water deep,
Yeah, you do go through the water, yeah.
Yeah, they're armored with big rock.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
You had a comment about Duke Energy and Dan Riversville. Can you talk a little bit about your funding path to get those dollars? And I have a follow-up question about the economic impact of the trails, because you mentioned that several times, races and those kinds of things to build support politically.
Okay.
Part question.
Okay, great.
About how easy was it to get the Duke money, and then what's the economic impact of having done that assessment?
Okay, great. So the Duke Energy funding went to a local community foundation. They put $250,000 for this local foundation, and the foundation expended those funds, and we went through a grant application to access those funds. And then Duke Energy dedicated $10 million to the Duke Energy Water Resources Fund that was open to Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, a much broader area. And then you access those grant applications came out twice a year through the North Carolina Community Foundation. They were administering those funds for them. And you went through an LOI, a letter of interest was due first, and then they sent you an invitation to apply, and then you applied, and if you were granted those funds, you had to complete your project within a year. They've recently updated that to 18 months. But I'm sorry to say they've done their last funding round on that, at least according to the website. And so then other places to go for funding are, you know, hospital partners and corporations and local foundations and individual donations. I mean, we really beat the drum in a lot of areas to raise the money for the trail.
Do you control, or I mean, like Ferris and that, do they control access to it when it's, after it's rained and that? Because I know like Scott and that, I've heard that they all close down the trails. It's a big rainstorm, and you know, so the trails that get torn up if they're muddy and such.
If it's been a really rough rain, like after Michael or Florence, I believe the park personnel goes out and puts up tape across there, and then we'll post it on Facebook page that the trail is closed. And then I'll try to remember to post it when it's open. I forgot after Matthew, and somebody said, "Hey, can I go ride?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's open now." Jesse?
Thanks for the partnership over the years. I mean, I have to put all the credit on you for making implementation possible. So I can't tell you how many plans I've worked on that haven't had the attention and stewardship that you have. I did want to mention also that kind of something that's spun off from a lot of the great work that Jenny's done. The local community college in Rockingham County has through a Duke Energy Trails grant, has a trail building school. So Rockingham Community College, if anybody's interested in that, they've got classes going on from just one-day classes to three-day classes to whole curriculum. So it's a really strong resource for this region that I think is worth checking into, and I think that has a lot to do with some of the work that Jenny and Tony have done in the county.
Yeah, thank you. I should have put Tim Johnson's contact up there too, but you can reach Tim Johnson, he's the director, through the Rockingham Community College for that trails program.
Doesn't Norba offer citizens trail building classes?
Yeah, but this is something that's going on every month, all the time. 20 miles away.
Yeah, but you're right, there's other places, you know.
I mean, that's a national one, and they'll move around the country. And do
Or you could come volunteer with us, and we can show you some stuff too. We always could use some help out there on the trails. I can't show you, but Tony can.
So because it was on like city land and you're kind of describing it as a park, does that mean like the Parks and Rec facility helps mow it or keep it up, or is it still all volunteer?
Well, we really don't need much maintenance because of how it was built. I mean, honestly, that's really the truth. And so, for instance, the High Rock Trail that we just completed, Tony just built the path down to the river access and a huge tree fell over it. So I'm going out Wednesday with Eric Jude and Joe, who are with Get Outdoors, and they're bringing their chainsaw, and we're going to cut that tree off, and the trail's fine other than that. Done?
Good?
Yeah.
Everybody good? Round of applause.